Great this morning. It's so interesting on this morning's Schumann resonance chart. And what's going on there is that it looks totally blue, totally calm. You wouldn't know that anything had happened. And the reason why I did this live and I just thought we gotta talk about this is the red quality spiked to 140. And that is like far off of trend, right? It's just super high. And so I wanted to talk about the meaning of this and the human experience, from the perspective of the human experience of electromagnetic energies. And remember, we are electromagnetic beings, right? The human heart emits an electromagnetic energy field, right? And so do the other organs, but the heart has the strongest one. And we have both electric and magnetic energies within the body as a part of our energy system. And so we are a part of these things. And in my view, we generate them also. We emit these energies also. And we also emit human brainwaves between a range of 0 and 40 hertz, which is the same range as the Schumann resonance charts. And remember, there's 7.7 billion of us. Boom, 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 like every day, just emitting the energy. So I do think that using the Schumann resonance spectrogram chart as a map of human consciousness is valid and is a very interesting thing. And what's so amazing to me, because I interpret the images intuitively, but I also interpret the data, which is today is going to be more data focused. But it's interesting to me how the energies flow so much with what's happening in the world and how they flow so much even with the astrology, which is another electromagnetic energy. It's really interesting because I think the astrology and the Schumann go really well hand in hand, because you're talking about a planetary effect with the Schumann resonance. It's a global, right, energy. And these low Hertz waves, they're very long, low Hertz waves that can go around the globe. 2 or 3 times, probably depending on their power, strength, and other things. But the astrology is an electromagnetic energy as well that is planetary, in my view, and that involves the interactions of the planets in the solar system and the sun, as does the Schumann resonance. On my beginner playlist, you'll see the first video, What the Heck Is It? I show how the emission of the sun comes into the Earth's magnetic field, right? And then we get auroras and stuff like that, but potentially also affecting the resonances. Okay, great. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, Nancy. What a sweet comment. Yeah, I've done a lot of emotional healing work over the last few weeks, but let's move on to the Schumann. Okay, so here's what's going on. So we got a red spike in the qualities, and I almost missed it because you know how they put the the copyright over the smack in the middle of the chart. At first, I didn't see it because you can barely see the spike. You have to really expand the data image. But you can see it on the left side of the chart because the key goes to 140. And what's interesting is that on the frequency charts, okay, green has been spiking to highs in its frequency range. And green I take in terms of human experience as representing the whole of humanity. It's kind of like a monitor of how we're doing. And so when green moves to the higher end of the range, what I have found in terms of watching what events go on over time is that we appear to be more confident. And in our confidence, we experience an expanded range of reality, right? We let ourselves stretch in a good way. And so what happens is green had spiked on the chart. This really happened just after midnight and just before 1 a.m. today on today's chart, Tomsk time. So green peaks, but suddenly it comes off. And as it comes off, there's this super glowy effect in the very low hertz, like 2.5 hertz. And this is the unconscious level of human brainwaves. But here's what's interesting. at 2.5 hertz, if you look up patents and stuff like this, and one of my Twitter followers had posted a bunch of this, and I can't remember your name, otherwise I would say it. But at 2.5 hertz, you'll find a lot of patents for influencing the human electromagnetic system and for influencing potentially human thoughts, human brain waves, human brain patterns, how we think. And so what's fascinating is that this range of 2.5 hertz just lit up like boom, 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 like fireworks this morning, or well, it was last night, but around midnight in the chart. And sustained for at least a couple of hours. And then there was this really little weird squiggle on the chart. And I kept thinking to myself, the power of the squiggle. There was this really strange line. And it was a little higher on the chart in the beta brainwave. So that's where the thought is. There was a little squiggle, and then suddenly the green frequencies, they fall to a low in their range, and red qualities spike. Okay. So the quality, in my view, in a layman's definition, is really the closest, the higher the quality spikes, the closer the resonance gets to the truth of what it is, of what it naturally represents. And so, for example, if for a human being, if our quality spikes, in my view, that would be that you are getting in closer touch to the truth of who you are, like the truth of who you are as a living soul, then your quality would be really high. Just to give you an example, if those things could be measured, which maybe they can be, who knows? There's lots of fascinating stuff going on in the realms of science. But so what does quality mean spiking to 140? Well, in my view, the human experience of the quality of the red range of frequency range of the Schumann resonances is for human beings, in my view, this represents our deeper, denser experiences. It can represent fear. It can represent, deep anger, but deep fear. It can represent the shadow side of the human personality, but it can also represent the forces of darkness, in terms of the greater spiritual battle on earth that we, as humanity, appear to be involved in. Didn't know it, it's come to light, right? We've all started to realize that, there's something going on here, and it looks like it's way bigger, way, way bigger than maybe any of us could have ever imagined. And so with the red spiking to 140, it felt to me like a stressor. And the other reason that I say that is because red dropped like a rock on its frequency range all the way to 18.0. And I cannot remember when red has been that low in its frequency range. So the Schumann resonances have different data components to them: frequency, amplitude, quality. And now I don't have the great big database in the sky, right? So I don't have all the data. I just have, actually doing the work to watch the charts every day, or almost every day, or very often, depending on what day, month, and year it is. But I've never seen it in my memory go down to 18.0. Like that is, I don't think we've seen the red range stretch that low before. Not to say it's not somewhere in the database, okay? But it's not usually that low. And so the red Hertz range in frequencies is actually a 3 Hertz range right now, which is really stretched. Like, if you take a look at where the 3 other resonances are, the ranges are much more narrow. And in fact, in some cases, they've been narrowing. It's really interesting because it's the late summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and the red frequency range, you may have noticed that it's gotten very thin and narrow at times in the last handful of weeks. And I've noticed that this can be a trend in the late summer. What does this mean? It's kind of like, I don't know if there's just too much joy going on, you know, if there's just too much joy because we're all, this is a time of joy, right? In the Northern Hemisphere. And the chart location is based in the Northern Hemisphere. But the expression and the range, in my view, is how I'm going to say it, of fear and anger, it's very narrow, it's very thin, right? And so to have this big leap in, of a range to a 3 hertz range, a big expansion in terms of the movement in the frequency range of red. It's like, it's normally comfortable at this time seasonally in a much more narrow range. And so it's uncomfortable for it to just go drop like a rock like that. And so here's kind of what I've been perceiving. The other thing that's been happening is that green qualities have just been spiking to highs of 31. Now, before the pandemic, this happened all the time. Okay, before 2020, no biggie, 31 all the time. But during the last 3 years, it's like humanity started to hide, especially in 2020 and 2021. And our quality, the green quality it was low so much. In fact, for most of 2020, it barely spiked to 15 even. And so now in 2023, in the summertime, Northern Hemisphere, we've been getting all of these quality spikes. And today's chart, or in the last 3 days, with the scepter, the torch and scepter image that's on the first day of today's charts, it was just like spike. There were 5 spikes to 31, another one today. And I think that we are feeling the strongest we have felt literally in years. Okay. This is like the most spikes in green and quality. And like I said, when green quality spikes, in my view, we're getting closer to soul. We're more connected. We're getting to really know the truth of who we are. We have gained strength in the face of adversity. And despite the horrible things going on in the world. And we are in the Lion's Gate energy. And this is important to remember. Okay, seasonally, where are we at? Here's where we are. We're in the new moon. We just had the new moon about 4 days ago. So we're in the first week of the new moon, a time of new energy, new beginnings. It's the new moon in Leo. Leo is the heart of the lion. Leo is the sign of courage, the sign of the sun, this representing the soul. Where does our courage ultimately come from? It comes from our connection with the divine and the knowing that God's got our back in life. Well, around July 21st, we started the Lion's Gate energy. Most people, and in general on the internet, all of us who publish, we celebrated on 8/8, right? The 8/8 gateway. But it really starts on July 24th, and it goes this year to September 3rd, and actually a little bit beyond that. And what does that mean? It's the heliacal rise of the star Sirius. And what in the heck is that? Well, every star, every year, I'm just to do a little example. Every year, the star comes up, okay, above the horizon at sunrise. And when the star is rising at the horizon with the light of the sun, the flame can be the sun, that's called the heliacal rise. And it's a special time of year for that star. Well, in ancient times, okay, the ancient Egyptians view the heliacal rise of Sirius, the star Sirius, as the beginning of the new year. This was the new year time. Fascinatingly, it was also the time of flooding of the Nile River. Okay, and that's why it's so interesting that we are having massive floods in Baja California. We had big flooding in Vegas and the Los Angeles area. I don't know how many of you know this, but on 8/8, the Lion's Gate, there was massive flooding in China. I mean, just extraordinary. If you go there's some really good China YouTubes, like China Observer had some good videos on this. But anyway, it was just off the charts. And so it's interesting to me, the idea of flooding during the Lion's Gate. Even though we don't remember that this was the start of the ancient New Year, it's in our genetic lineage as humans to associate that. And the ancient Egyptians knew that the land flooded, the water soaked into the land, and that then after this flooding season, it was called the season of inundation, came the season of growth and then the season of harvest. And so the flood now prepares the land for later. And an interesting way to look at that from, what does that mean to you today? How does this affect your life? Well, we can see the new moon and the Lion's Gate season of energy, right? And in the Schumann, the images have been reflecting these concepts. There was what I called a torch or scepter, depending on where you're at energetically, right? In the Schumann on today's chart. Last week we had a knife edge wave. When the wave comes in, it has a straight line on one side and then a steep vertical on the other. I call it a knife edge. And then it looked like we were cutting away last week. The intense focus of the knife edge and then the super red lines, that we were cutting away that which does not serve. Why? Because we have another major event this week, which is the heliacal rise of Venus. Okay, so Venus is going to be coming above the northern, the horizon in the northern hemisphere on August 24th at 6:08 Pacific time. And why is this important? Because even though Venus is retrograde right now, so we're reviewing, right, what the energy of Venus means. It's a pause time, and there's like 5 bodies retrograde in the sky right now, 5 planetary bodies. But Venus is what we truly value. And when you combine that with the courage of the lion, this is a time to allow yourself to flood yourself with the courage of your own soul, right? Venus, from a soul perspective, from its place in the actual sky, it's still in Cancer. From the matrix perspective of how astrology charts are done, it's in Leo. So there's an interesting thing going on here. The soul level is still in Cancer, the sign of the home. And so until the Venus in the sky moves into Leo, well, it's still in Cancer. And I go over all these dates in my Venus Rising Substack article linked below. This is actually a great time to build inner strength. So continue a spiritual practice, start a spiritual practice. Think about, hey, I used to believe in God, or I used to, feel closer to God, and I haven't in a long time. This is the time to reactivate that. Just like the Nile flooded at the beginning of the new year, use this season to flood yourself with good energy. So as we go into the fall, because once we get to September 4th, stuff is going to start happening. And what's going to start happening? Well, what I want to really highlight is the planet Pluto. We all know that Pluto is a big story in the astrology right now because Pluto is moving into Aquarius. And over, a handful of years here, Pluto has been going into Aquarius, then back into Capricorn, then it will go into Aquarius, back, and so on, until it finally gets seated fully in Aquarius in 2025. And so what does that matter for today? Well, at the new moon at the end of last week on Friday, what happened was Pluto opposed Juno. Okay, it was so cool, the energies for this new moon, so amazing. I wrote about it in detail on yesterday's Substack. So there's 2 Substack articles that go along with this video to check out if you'd like to. But so Pluto opposed Juno. Well, what does that mean for us? Well, Juno represents the divine mother. She's the wife, Hera, also, of Jupiter or Zeus, okay? And So she's opposed Jupiter. She's opposed Pluto, the lord of the underworld. So she was at 0 of Leo tropically. So on the chart that everyone uses and talks about. So Leo is a sign of the individual. And so Juno is at 0 degrees. She's facing the Lord of the underworld. And she's saying, these are my children. Humanity is mine. I want them to survive. I want them to thrive. And this is how we are going to do it, to support humanity at the individual level for all of us, right? Because 0 degrees comprises the energy of the entire sign, the fullness of what every degree of Leo represents. So she's got our backs, the great mother, the divine mother. And the women on the chart are not usually talked about, but they're always, the goddesses are always in the background. And this is one of the reasons why I pay attention to the goddess energy on the chart and the key goddesses like Venus, like Juno, like Pallas, Athena, like Eris, like Lilith, is because to provide a balanced perspective. And because, the goddesses are always working behind the scenes. And if you're not looking at what they're doing, you don't get the full picture. Well, every important goddess has in the past several months faced Pluto in opposition. Okay, so including Venus, including Lilith, and including Pallas Athena, and now Juno. You're talking about a heavy powerhouse of hitters there. All right, so the divine and Ceres and the divine mothers, okay, have been from the perspective of the divine human, of the divine feminine, not the distorted perspective on Earth, right? Where femininity can get stretched to, but the true divinity, God's will, right, has opposed Pluto. And so on September 4th, what's going to happen is that Pluto is going to move into relationship with the fixed star Terebellum. Now, I've written videos on, I've written, I think I've written Substacks or I've done videos on this. Terebellum in Latin means earth war. And this degree of Capricorn that Pluto will be at, 28 degrees, is also the Mars exaltation point. And it will be in range, an orb of Terebellum. Terebellum has a very narrow range. It's only a 1 degree orb, okay? Now, last year in the fall, I talked about this a lot. And I said last year, if there was going to be a breakout of war, that's when the Ukraine-Russia thing was really going. I said it would have to happen before December 17th of 2022, because that was when Pluto was within range of Terebellum. Now, Pluto has come back. We have a red spike in quality. So the darkness, the forces of darkness have just gone, like they've just had this collective scream, okay? And this collective, like, we've got to do something. But we're still in the Lion's Gate where the light is rising. So I think what's going to happen is that the red spike shows us, right, the potential for rash action, an action that is not well thought out on the part of the dark forces of darkness. And that once Pluto gets to September 4th in range of Terebellum, that, that's when we'll probably see some moves and some action. And it's within range of Terebellum. I'll have to do that exactly in another article, but for several weeks. And thank God it's only several weeks. Okay, so there's really a narrow window. There's really a narrow window here to utilize the power of that conjunction. However, when you have Terebellum at the Mars exaltation point, which is where it's at, okay, at this point in history, what you have is leaders who will do anything to grab power, even if it's a rash action. All they care about is gaining territory, gaining power. Where have we seen that? I mean, you're already seeing the echoes of it, and it's so horrible that it enrages me to even think about talking, even think about it. But and I'm telling you about, of course, the fires in Lahaina in Maui. My voice just changed because I just got so mama bear, about what is going on over there. Wow, that really hits, right? Whew. Oh gosh. And the other thing that's going on the new moon chart for this month is the way that Mercury has opposed Neptune. Okay, I want to say this because I think that gentleman Anthony Oliver, who's done Richmond, North of Richmond, that song, it's incredible. The astrology is perfect for that rising up now. You have Pallas Athena at the new moon. So that's the energy for the next month, right? So that's August 16th through September 13th. Pallas Athena, who backs heroes. She provides us with all the tools for our heroic journey. She is next to Mercury, as Mercury opposes Neptune. And on the other side of Mercury is Mars in close conjunction. And at the same time, there was a yod to Mercury. And the yod came from Chiron, mastery and wounding. Oh my God, this just gets me. And Hygeia, all right, it was wide with Hygeia, and that's health, wellness, how we live our lives. And it's an Aquarius, really representing at this point the sickness in our societies. She's retrograde. Hygeia is retrograde in Aquarius. Aquarius represents, our group consciousness, and health in our group consciousness retrograde. We're looking at the sickness in society. Chiron was retrograde. So we're looking at what are our woundings? How do we achieve mastery? How do we learn from what we've been through? And all of this in a yod to Mercury, okay, going direct. Super challenging, difficult energy. The reason that I talk about it is because a yod is the finger of God. It's where God points to on the chart. And what's the meaning? Can you break off the illusion, the elusive narratives? Can you break off the false light? Can you stop listening to the lies? Can you even recognize them? If we can, this is our moment to break away from the false narratives and the false light. And for this song to come out, and for this gentleman, Oliver Anthony, I think Oliver's the first name, Oliver Anthony, to come forth with this song. It literally last week just launched into national view within 3 days of it being posted, or the next day of it being posted on YouTube, and it's gone globally, I think, to number 1. Okay, but it's number 1 on iTunes in the USA. And globally, it's hit a chord. This gentleman has captured the truth, the true voice of the people. And in doing so, broken off, right? All the falseness. When you hear a false narrative and you compare it to that true resonance coming through there, right? Coming through that song of the pain that we're all feeling, right? In all our different ways of how we've been lost and how we want to come into the light, how we want to bring that to earth and live it here, right? We want life to be good. We want life to be better. And we want to win this war, this spiritual war, which is, which is a far greater battle. And Juno opposing Pluto at the new moon says, I want to win this war. The Divine Mother says, I want to win this war for my children, for the generations. Because you see, Juno, the reason Juno is so important opposing Pluto at the new moon right? With the energy of this song coming in, with the energy of the war being so obvious, right? Before all of us, the contrasts in what is true and what is not in terms of what is spoken, the sounds that we're hearing is because Juno is also the clan mother. And, if you read the mythology of Hera or of Juno, it's quite something. She's always arranging marriages. She's having this guy have kids with that girl. Okay. She wants to match, partners. She wants to match couples so that they produce certain offspring, to strengthen the clan, to strengthen the tribe, to bless and benefit humanity. Remember, she's a goddess, so she's in alignment with divine will in the highest exaltation. In the lowest forms, there's a lot of negative aspects of femininity we can all, I'm sure, imagine that I don't need to go into. We see them everywhere, okay, at this time. Part of the, not just the false narratives, but part of the narratives that are just not working for us, right, as human beings. It's just not working for femininity to be stretched the way that it has been. So let's recover. Let's recover ourselves. All right. So I think we've hit, all the key points here. Carry on, keep going, build resistance, use this calm, right? Use the calm in the build to build in the resonances to build strength and power. We got this, guys. God's got our back. Build up your courage, right? Because in these energies, Mars at Mercury powers our courage to break this off us, break this off us, right? If we do not exercise courage, do you know what happens? Instead, Mars powers the illusion. Do you want that? And let me say something here. I want to say something because I was reading Truth Social this morning, and there's a lady that we follow each other. Her name is Semra. What is her name? Semra Keep Believing, I think it is, or Semra Don't Stop Believing. SEMR. Semra Don't Stop Believing. She also posts on the Schumann. And I saw her post, and I saw a post from another gentleman, and it brought to mind something for me. It brought to mind a memory of one of my motivations for doing this. Okay. And here it is. I've mentioned that over the years that I've done, I do have had a practice of doing energy work and what I've called prayers for the planet, where I do energy work with others. And it's just, working with the energy of the planet. If you don't know what that is, it's just, 20 years ago, if you told me I would be doing that, I would have just thought, what are you talking about? That's too woo-woo. But one of the things that I was involved in going back about 10 years, there were a lot of us at that time that were working on timelines. Okay. And it's basically, when this is my experience, when you do this kind of work, God's will is directing you, especially if you declare that you are working, I do the work in alignment with God's will. I give it to God. I declare the highest good unfold in alignment with God's will, right? You make these declarations. So you're coming from that place. Well, the level of control over the population, the level of surveillance, the level of technology that I saw what I saw was alternative. At that time, I was looking at alternate timelines for Earth. Okay. And like I said, a lot of us were doing this. And when you are called to do this, when you have the authority, and if you know you have the authority, you just have it. It's divinely, like God directs you to do something, essentially, is what I'm saying here. So there's a process by which these timelines can be removed. And so this is the kind of work that I was involved with, working with others. And we were also working, of course, with the higher selves of humanity, the great celestial beings, Archangel Michael, for example, the embodiment of divine will and the protector. Archangel Uriel, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Gabriel, the four archangels mentioned in the Bible, in the Jewish scripture, and in the Quran. But the level was off the hook, you guys. I mean, you have no idea where they wanted to go, and those timelines from what I saw at that time, totally removed. Okay, and over the last 10 plus years that we've been at this, we have been doing the work. It's like God removes them, but then we unfold it in physical reality. And as someone who is an energy worker, and I feel very comfortable in the non-physical aspect of life at this point in my life, now that I've had some maturity and some growth, learning, and mastery, come to fruition. It can be hard to remember to balance it with the physical, right? It is important when you're an intuitive, when you are an energy worker, when you are a prayer worker, to balance it with the physical side of life. But the biggest frustration for me always is how slow things manifest in the physical. In God's timing, bam, it's done. And I've seen amazing things happen in the non-physical in God's timing. But in the physical world, man, we're just like plodding. It feels so slow. Sometimes it's painful, right? You're just plodding through the molasses of reality. Like, I've got this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And I'm sure you guys just know what I feel like when I say that. But we are doing it because, like I said, it's, gosh, when I was doing that work, what year was it? That was probably 11 or 12 years ago. And it didn't happen. We're not there. We're nowhere near, even in China. Even as bad as it is in China, from the videos that I've seen recently, as bad as it is there, it's not where they wanted to take this. So keep your prayers up. Okay, keep your prayers up, because that courage, that connection with divinity, the creating in co-creation with the living soul that you are, God matters. God's influences matter, and miracles can happen. But the divine God needs us to make requests and to do it in a way that's connected, and then to live it. Okay. I'm sure some of us, maybe in past lifetimes, I did, because I was a monk. I got to just pray and make requests and imagine and commune with God. Okay. But then a lot of us in this lifetime, we're actually living it. You're doing the day to day, the plodding along, the trying to build something in the physical world. It's not easy, man. It's hard, right? It is hard to do it, to build it. But it's also so exciting, because I have the hope for such an amazing future now. And with Pluto going through the last degrees of Capricorn here over the next 2 years, do I personally have trepidation over it? Sure, I do. Okay. I'll be honest. Okay. I'm not like, I believe God's got my back, but does the pure human body be like, I wonder what it's going to be like, Sure, I do. And at the same time, the compass, it's not north, south, east, or west anymore. It's like, when you get to magnetic north, and they show on movies that it just spins in like all directions. That's 0 point. That's connectedness with the divine in you, right? That's connectedness in prayer. That's centeredness in meditation, right? That is where we can make the choices that have the highest outcome at this time. And woo, we got this, guys. We are doing it. And I believe in us. I believe in you. And I believe in me. I believe God's got my back. I believe that we're supported in all of this, whatever the future holds and whatever it looks like. And you know what? It may hold some very positive things. So, thank you so much for all of your comments in here. I've been kind of eyeballing the chat, but in I'll just answer the one question. What song is this that I'm referring to? Someone may have already put in an answer, but if you just look it up on YouTube, Oliver Anthony, there's no way you won't find it, because there's literally like 100 reaction videos to it right now. It has swept the country and the globe, and brings tears to my eyes every time I hear it. And ask for miracles. Ask God, believe that it's possible. Believe that in a moment's notice, things could change for the better. Let me tell you something, Did you remember the day the desktop telephone disappeared? Do you remember the day the big, huge computer desktops disappeared? Do you remember the day the icebox disappeared? Do you remember the day the Murphy bed stopped being a regular part of the home? Do you remember the day the ironing board stopped being used? We think that the fall is a great tragedy, and it is, okay? But it is a greater tragedy for the red, right? I'm talking about the Schumann resonance, the red resonance. It is the greater tragedy for the parts of us that are still stuck in illusion, that are still stuck in deep fear, that are still stuck in anger, deep anger, okay? And are there still people living that? Yes, there are. And the greater that we can lift ourselves up into that centered place, where the compass is spinning, the more capability that we have to deal with this in a non-emotional way. Because the forces of darkness are like narcissistic abusers, okay? They're really, their relationship with the rest of us, with humanity, is like a narcissist empath relationship. And the best way to deal with that kind of relationship is a God-centered approach, where you don't react, you don't give them any energy, you don't let them affect you. It's so interesting. I'm going to finish up here soon, but we had neighbors at one point, not where I live now, but where I used to live for a long time. And at the time, my husband and I, we just had this idea. We just came to it. They seem to want a lot of drama. If we don't interact, like if we don't make things a big deal, maybe they'll stop doing that. And that is exactly what happened. The neighbors really wanted drama with us, and we weren't very fun. So they did indeed move on to the next neighbor, who did react. And, of course, I wish the highest good for all. Sometimes getting into fights with neighbors is what was in the highest good. So I'm not wishing we weren't wishing ill on anyone. We were simply wishing the highest outcomes with the least drama for ourselves. And that's a good way to deal with these energies of darkness as they act out and cry out. Are there real, actual victims in this? We know there are. Okay. And, there's a lot of prayer that we can use to support ourselves and each other at this time. Okay. Have a great day. I love you. Thank you.